I know at least 3 of us use sales automation.
I do, at least.
You definitely considered it.
Yes, you considered it. Yeah, you're right. Maybe I should do a little demo of that. How to? You'll see.
I've been like absolutely evangelizing your voice message feature on LGM recently, by the way. I think it's one of the most heavily slept on features of the whole tool. Like the reply rates we get from the voice messages are pretty shocking. And I think it's just because who's not going to listen to a voice message that someone sends you on LinkedIn, especially when it's sent and it appears to be natively like, so yeah, like I really pretty much anytime I talk to a prospect or I have somebody on the call who doesn't have like a conventional offer or one that I think will like immediately get replies just as a normal email, I immediately go straight to like LGM voice. It's so good. I'd argue it has better reply rates than even video does just because it's native, and video you have to click on a link for.
Definitely.
But yeah, anyway, we'll get this thing kicked off. Yeah, we'll get it going. We'll appreciate everybody hopping on. I'm incredibly excited for this webinar in particular because it combines several different aspects of outbound that I feel to be pretty much necessary at this point. But before we get completely into the topic at hand, I figure we could all introduce ourselves, what companies we work for, and I can obviously get started and pass it off to Brice after. I am Patrick Spychalski. I help out with partnerships at clay.com. For those who don't know what Clay is, it is a sales automation tool that allows for really incredible data enrichment and outbound use cases. And I also run a Clay agency called The Kiln because it's a pretty hard tool to use. And so I try to help companies use it for, use it in a way, more informed way. But yeah, Brice, feel free to go ahead as well.
Thanks. So yeah, my name is Brice. I'm French. My accent will probably let you know. I'm the CEO and founder of Legos Machine. Legos Machine is a sales automation platform designed for growth and sales managers. We basically automate LinkedIn, email, Twitter, and calls. And if you have any question, feel free.
Awesome.
And I'm Toni, so I'm the founder of Buska, which is a social listening tool made for lead generation, where we track intent on social media to simplify outreach and use it to do outreach automation as well.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds good. Well, yeah, again, welcome everybody. I think it's a very 3 very complementary pieces of tech on this call today, which I think is what makes it so exciting. And the general topic at hand is, I think, a trend that pretty much anybody in the space is probably seeing, which is outbound as a whole is getting significantly harder to do. And there's a variety of reasons for that. Everything that ranges from deliverability problems coming from Google and Microsoft to people just getting a lot smarter about outbound as a whole. Obviously, in the most extreme case, when outbound initially, became a thing and messaging initially became a thing, you could just blast emails to people millions at a time, no personalization, and actually get results. And as time has gone on, the general trend is that there's a lot more effort and time that need to go into doing outbound. And of course, the issue associated with that is that there's only so much time in a day for sales teams to actually work on such things. And so there have been a ton of fixes to try to mediate that problem. And I think every piece of tech that any of us represent on this call kind of helps solve that problem in a unique way. For example, cold outreach by itself isn't working necessarily as well if you're just sourcing a list because they don't have any sort of relation or brand recognition to what you do, something that Buska obviously helps out a ton with. You have to find more nuanced data to personalize with, as well as use that data to personalize outbound at scale, which of course Clay helps with. And additionally, you have to start reaching out on several different channels in creative ways that other people aren't doing, which is what LGM helps with as well. So I just wanted the first question I had for both of you in general was, of course, given that trend that you're seeing a ton in the outbound space, apologies, something just fell next to me. But given that trend that you guys are seeing in the outbound space, what are some of the ways you are seeing people kind of mediate that problem and still achieve success? Because of course, I don't believe outbound to be anything close to dead, especially just given the results we're all probably seeing in the campaigns we're running. But like, what do you think the core differences are between the campaigns you're running that are actually working, and then the ones that most of the world as of right now is running. And I guess I can go to Toni first for this.
Yeah. One of the things I've realized, the first thing obviously is multi-channel, which is a big difference because I still see many people using just email campaigns like spray and pray, still the old way and expecting results. Multi-channel is clearly the way to go, to have multiple touch points. To touch people, vary also the ways you contact people. We were talking earlier about the voice messages in La Grosse Machine. Typically for me, that's a game changer. And since it came out, it's been the thing that I use the most which brings the best results, because it's a different way to approach things. It's unique, and as you said, it's native, so people feel it's natural, and plus the ability to personalize at scale makes it even more relevant. And the campaigns that work the most for me, obviously using also my own tool, but others as well, and we're going to talk about it, is intent-based campaigns, meaning that it's not anymore, as you said, things have changed. Before, at some point, it was just send emails to a list. Then it became personalized emails with the variables. And now it's more like find the relevant people to contact and find the right triggers relevant to your target audience. So that's the ones that work the best. And also on other topics, more like corporate or enterprise, it's account-based management also has been a big change that gets results for me.
Yeah, so awesome. I wanted to dive actually pretty quickly into the intent signal aspect of your answer there, because obviously that's the space you're working in pretty heavily, as well as the fact that I feel like the terms intent data have really been, of course, just becoming more and more popularized, but as a result, becoming more and more used as just a general buzzword. And so I guess there's a two-part question to that, because like it's effective, but I think a lot of people use the term without necessarily knowing what it does truly, or what sort of intent data actually works. And so it's a two-part question, which is the first thing is, what do you define as intent data? Because of course, like there can be kind of lower level intent data and then like more very direct intent data. For example, direct intent data being somebody interacting with your content. That's a very obvious direct intent data, but then maybe, it can go a bit further down to something more vague, like they're just hiring for a job in your space. And then the second part of that question is, what intent signals have you seen that are the most effective when you're running campaigns for the most part?
Brice, you want to take it?
Okay. I agree with you. Everybody used the term intent, and the summary that you just did was useful, I think. I use mostly three types of intent data myself. I'm sure there are tons more, but myself. One, I'm sure everybody knows website visitors services. Or B2B is the most famous about that. I use B2B, Vector, warmly. I named 3, so everybody can check. I use those, and it works quite well. I get approximately 24% of replies doing this. I used to get more, but it's declining, probably because it's used a little bit more on our ICP at least. But still, 25 is quite good. And so the intent is basically someone visits my website, R2B will detect who he is, give me his LinkedIn profile. We will filter for the profile that match our ICP, and then contact them. We don't contact them saying that I know that you visited my website. It doesn't work. But I'd say, okay, I do this. Would you be interested? And it works quite nicely. First. Second, you mentioned it, like the post, basically. Anyone that's interacting with me or with the team will be, I don't have real figures, but 10x more interested in using us. And so we use that trigger a lot internally. And the third one is the event. We are doing an event today. If anyone is doing an intent data platform, he should scrap everybody attending this event and contact them. That's an intent to me. That's also very powerful. I forgot a fourth one, the reason why we're here. I also use Buska to identify people talking about me. talking about Lagos machine, and then contact them to join our creator program. I may speak about that later.
Yeah, great. Those are four great examples. And I think they all share a common theme, which is it required some degree of marketing initiative to get those intent signals to actually come in. And that's a problem I see a fair amount when I'm talking to prospects, and I'm sure you guys see it somewhat frequently as well. But I'll have prospects get on calls with me and they're like, hey, I want to start using intent data to get more leads. And then I'll ask them, okay, like, well, what intent data do you have? And they're like, well, we don't have much of a social presence. We don't have a ton of website visitors. We're not running a ton of like marketing initiatives. And I'm like, well, where are you getting the intent data from? So it's a two-sided coin. You also have to run marketing initiatives usually to get this like high level intent data. Getting website visitor identification is great in theory, but if you only have 10 visitors a week, it's obviously not super helpful. Which actually leads in kind of into a question I have for Toni as well, which is just given how like your experience working in the space and obviously having a product that people are using quite frequently, what are the spaces in which people are utilizing intent data the most frequently? And the reason I ask this is because sometimes I get on calls and I wonder in certain spaces if intent is as effective for a given space. Like if they work in something more local, like construction or something, I'm like, are your website visitors really as actionable as like in SaaS? I'm curious as to like what you're seeing trends wise.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's interesting. Well, obviously the ones that work the most are the SaaS world, because obviously it's a digital industry. So digital signals are everywhere. Recruiting a lot, or like recruiting agencies or recruiting teams in companies use that a lot, because again, companies looking for jobs or people looking for jobs are everywhere. As you say, we have people coming to us and I do demos with them because they feel they don't get enough value from the tool, but it's because it's companies that are, as you say, localized and want to find, for example, I had an electrician company looking for people with electrical problems in Massachusetts. Obviously, you can find someone talking about it online, but it's going to be super niche, and you won't find anything relevant. So yeah, and it always goes back to the same thing. Those are tools. You need to find the ones that are relevant for you and find people where they are for your business. Another example was someone wanting to build a CRM specifically for nurses, and he wanted to build something for LinkedIn. And after a while and doing some research and talking with me and using Buska, he realized that his target audience, which were nurses, were on Facebook, not on LinkedIn. So he had to change his approach and still use signals, but on the specific platform that his clients were in. And I think that's what's important. You can find intents everywhere, but obviously using tools like the ones we run is going to be more difficult if you have a physical place that's very specific, or if your business is not available online. For example, I used to work in the banks in France. I know that bank executives, if they're looking for information about leverage buyouts, they're not going to find that on LinkedIn. Nobody's going to say, hey, I'm going to buy this company. No, so so it's not relevant to use those use cases. Or another example was a lead gen agency. One of his clients was someone making a software that plays music in retail stores. Obviously, retail store owners don't talk online about, hey, I need a software to put music in my store. So that's the limits of it. But to me, nowadays there's so many different kinds of intents that for many different kind of industries you can find intents that are relevant, but you have to use the right ones. But obviously SaaS and recruiting to me are the industries that use our tools the most.
Yeah, there's two parts of that I thought were particularly interesting that you touched on. The first one being that there is just some data you can't really find online, and I think a lot of people just assume that it's all there somewhere, and you just have to find the correct data provider. And I think the more difficult that data is to find, the more speculative the data you're scraping is. Like, for example, there's companies like 6 Sense that are always like saying, hey, we were able to find like somebody from this company is searching on this topic, and you're like, how did you find that particularly? So I find the more concrete intent data signals to be a lot more effective than the ones that are like, somebody at this company might have been searching something like a month ago about the thing you're selling. I'm like, well, that's like I could have
I
probably
didn't,
guessed that. You
I
know?
didn't test that already, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of the massive approach. And usually when you ask Six Sense or tons of companies like this, telling you, okay, those persons are looking for a sales automation tool or something like this, they give me like 60,000 people to contact that have expressed an intent in the last 5 days. Whatever, I know it's false. I know
Yeah.
it's not true.
And
So,
they're giving you that list to be like, maybe 5% of this list has been doing searching, but you need to figure out who they are because we don't know. And it's like, well,
yeah.
I don't want to, like, by the time I reach out to the 60,000th person, it's going to be 4 months from now. They're probably not even really interested anymore, you know? So like there's
Exactly.
also like a time to lead thing there that needs to be taken into account, I think.
But to complete, to say the same as Tony, I would mention the recruitment area to be one of the most obvious area to use intent data. If you hire a growth manager, well, maybe you need help to get to find the right one. That's the easiest.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, the second aspect I wanted to touch on that Tony just talked through, and I actually kind of had a follow-up question mostly for Brice because he covers such a multi-channel approach to outbound. There's, I think, a lot to be said about the channel in which you're doing outreach on. I have an example with a client of my own from recently where we were reaching out to a client strictly from cold email, just like scaled cold email, and we were getting absolutely zero results. Just like was not working for them at all. And we decided to pivot to LinkedIn and use the exact same messaging and had it work like incredibly well. I think we've generated for them like 30 million in pipeline in the past like 5 or 6 months using just LinkedIn. And like they're a huge company. And I was just shocked by the fact that like the channel matters that much. I always knew it mattered to an extent. Like, you know, of course, some people are on LinkedIn more, some people are on email more. And in this case, we were reaching out to Fortune 500 companies, and it was like mostly like senior people at those companies, and they only responded on LinkedIn. So my question for you, Brice, is like, obviously channel plays a bit of an impact. How do you decide which channel to use when you're running a campaign? And what kind of thought process go into that?
Well, we do Twitter, LinkedIn, email, okay, basically. I run campaigns for Lagos Machine. That's obvious. Our users, our ICP are on LinkedIn. Definitely, they do. If I take what Tony said for the nurses, well, we also tested initially if our audience or our leads would be on LinkedIn. They are. So, of course, I will use that channel. Then they also have an email. And if they are in the US, they also have a Twitter most of the time. So I will use all those channels, okay? We also run calls, but I don't use calls. Why? Because our ACV, annual contractual value, is too low to justify a call. So that's a way to, you know, I don't want to spend my day to call people to sell them a $60 per month license. Doesn't make sense. And so I only use those three because they are automated. Now, the priority, which one first? Well, data says that you get approximately 1 to 3% replies, maybe, okay, let's say 5% when you send emails. You'll get almost nothing on Twitter, but it will increase other channel reply rates. Okay, it's just a booster. And email on LinkedIn, you get from 10 to 30% replies. On average, 18% replies for our users, 18. So if you accumulate LinkedIn plus email, you get approximately 25, 24, 25, something like this. Now, which one first? Well, I always start with LinkedIn just because, well, the sooner I get a reply, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I used to be kind of, I would say maybe not indifferent is the word, but I was always kind of split between whether email or LinkedIn would be the right channel to start with. I was always kind of like, well, you can send really, really high volume if you use the right email infrastructure. But I think for the average person running a cold email campaign now, I would say actually anybody, but especially the average person who is having a hard time with deliverability or email infrastructure build outs, LinkedIn is such an obvious next channel, or first channel. It's just like the reply rates are significantly higher. Obviously, you can't send at the same like insanely high volume some email campaigns can, but the reply rates are so much higher. And if you're using intent data, like from Buska, for example, like getting people who are engaging with your LinkedIn, you don't even really need that level of volume. And we've just seen vastly better results. On top of the fact that most people and most companies, I think, are having problems with deliverability right now. I couldn't imagine anybody running automated campaigns unless you're working with like the top like 15, 20 agencies out there running email campaigns. You're probably having, pretty tough deliverability issues. And LinkedIn doesn't really have that problem, nor do you have to spend credits on finding them. So like it's cheaper, reply rates are higher, usually less problems with it. And obviously when you're using a software like Toni's, it's like they're engaging with you on LinkedIn. Like where do you think you should be reaching out to them? Obviously LinkedIn is probably the right answer. So I have one more question, and then I figured we could kind of talk through kind of the general process you guys have been taking to actually run a campaign like this, because I feel like we've been kind of going through a lot of theory, but I have one more kind of theory-based question more specifically for Toni. So obviously when there's been a lot of people, of course, using your data for a series of different outbound purposes. I think like the value add of the data is pretty apparent. It's just far better types of people to reach out to than a cold list. What are some of the best methods you've seen people actually use in messaging for those campaigns to work? And I guess I've heard one question I get all the time, and I've always kind of conflicted is like some people are like, do you reference the fact that they've engaged with you in the past before, or do you just go straight to the value prop? Like, yeah, how do you generally see the message being structured when you see an effective campaign happen using Buska?
Well, in our case, depending on the outbound that you want to do and the approach that you have, most of the time speed is of the essence. So basically, because it's people talking about what you can solve for them, actually they're actually more responsive and enjoy the fact that you noticed something. And actually, even if you automate the process using a client like Gross Machine, it makes it relatable, because it's not just, I saw you posted about, I saw you went to the same high school as me. By the way, do you want to buy a software from me? Makes no sense. Here, it's you track keywords that are relevant to your business and the people, the problem that they have is relative to what you do. So basically, you do mention what you did, which is, hey, I saw you talked about whatever topic, or I saw you talked about a competitor of ours online, by the way, and you engage with them directly, because it shows that you are interested in something real that they said, and it's not just some abstract notion or some I visited your profile and I would like to sell you an accounting software, if though you work in marketing, So to me, stating the fact that you saw what they did is what works the best. And because there's a specificity in our case, it's because we do real-time, like real-time fitting of the lists, because every time someone mentions the keyword online, it pops in your list, so it makes sense to mention it directly. It's not like other tools that you find triggers that are 3 months old. Like, for example, you raised funds 3 months ago, 6 months ago. Is that really relevant to mention it? Or as Brice said, you visited our website. We're not supposed to know, but we found a way to know it, and because that raises privacy issues. Whereas in our case, people publicly talk about the stuff. So basically, if a company says we're looking for a product manager and I'm a product manager, I'm going to reach out and say, hey, I saw you were looking for someone doing product management. I'm that kind of person. So that's no problem for us.
Yeah, I completely agree with that entire idea, which is using an intro line, especially, or like an intro, or like just a segue into reaching out to them with something actually relevant to what they're looking for. I've always kind of detested the outbound that just says like, hey, I saw you went to school at like X, like go, and you talk about the mascot or something, and then you go into selling them like a $7,000 a month enterprise software. It's like, I'm not making a purchase decision because you went to school with me. I'm making a purchase decision because you actually have a good value prop or a good offer. I've always not been a fan. I usually anytime I get any sort of outreach, especially when I can tell it's like cold and automated, that mentions something about like my personal life, I'm just like, immediately, I don't care. So
Yeah,
I totally agree. I think it's probably worth walking through how we actually, like the general topic of actually turning online mentions into customers. How are we actually approaching this end to end? And obviously, as you could probably imagine, it is a combination of these three pieces of tech kind of all orchestrating themselves into one beautiful motion. And I think it's first worth walking through how they all interact with each other. And it works in a pretty cohesive and step-by-step way. And you have to imagine any outbound campaign needing three things. The first thing is a data source. The second thing is a place to enrich and personalize some of that data. And the third place is somewhere to send that data across several different channels. And what's kind of nice about this webinar in particular is that we have all three of those things here. And so we have obviously an incredible lead source that sources intent data. We have a place where you can find information about these intent signals, essentially any piece of information publicly available about these people or companies, and then a place to go reach out to them in this really conditionally run multi-channel way. Before we actually got on here, Toni walked through this build out that he had. And I thought, from a high level, it actually was really valuable to see how it works in action. Obviously the granular details of how it's built out are pretty nuanced and take some time to learn. But I think it would be actually of value for you to walk through how that process works, just so people understand kind of the tech stack we're using and how all of these things are being run in an automated fashion.
Sure. Great. Do you want me to share the screen to then walk through? Yeah, makes it easier. Just as a support, just to talk about stuff. Here we go. Tell me if you can see the screen here.
Yep, we're good.
Yeah. So great. The idea is to track, find people online that are talking about, as I said, topics that are relevant to your business. So there are three main kind of keywords that you track using Buska. Is obviously your own brand, like Roast Machine or Clay, for example. Next one is your competition. You be looking, for example, if I work for a calendar app, I'm going to look for the keyword alternative to Calendly to find people talking trash about the competition. And the third one is the pain points that you can solve for your clients. For example, in the Brice's case, could be like cold emailing, outreach automation. In my case, it's social listening, which is what I do. And then inputting those keywords, then Buska is going to find every person in real time that is mentioning those keywords online, be it on LinkedIn, obviously, which is the main platform that we use, but it can be on any kind of platform. It can be Reddit. There's a lot of stuff on Reddit with actually talking about platforms and where to find people. We've seen some of our clients using Reddit a lot. We are talking about the fact that Twitter, you don't get many replies. But for example, on Reddit, if you're the first one to talk when someone mentions social listening online, and I'm the first one putting a comment saying, I know a great tool, it's Buska, the number of people viewing a Reddit post is impressive. I mean, even if you have 0 followers on Reddit, and I've seen it myself, you can have a comment that's seen 10,000, 20,000 of times. And that helps a lot actually in nurturing people down your funnel. So you don't get direct replies from that kind of channel as well as Twitter, but that feeds a lot of your pipe. And I know companies, I talked to Alexander from Mentix, which is a recruiting app. Actually, he did that a lot using keywords on Reddit. He accounted for 10 or 20 or even more % of his inbound was from that channel, just being the first one to comment when people talked about certain keywords. So we find every platform, Reddit, Twitter. Again, as we said, in our case, for example, Twitter could be a great way to use automation with Roast Machine to engage with people and share some information to nurture them. And we find them in real time, and it keeps filling up daily when people are talking about it. And so then what you do is basically we have a list. We get you a list of the people that are talking about those keywords, and then you just select the ones that you want to reach out to. So let's say I'm going to select the whole list, and then with a button, export them into the next part of the funnel, as you were saying, Patrick. We found you the data, and we found you people that are relevant for your business, because the idea is to find you more qualified people than just cold outreach. Because if people talk about a topic that's relevant to your business or about a competitor or about your brand online, they're obviously further down the funnel of acquisition than the top of the funnel, people that are not even aware. Here, they're aware of the problem because they're talking about it themselves. And so the next step is to, once you have those information, which is the lead name, the lead URL, and the content that they talked about, is to send that into Clay to enrich that data, which is the next step. And then you get it directly here. You can even have webhooks nowadays that are going to feed directly Clay with new leads that come from Buska. And then here, as you know, Patrick, and as you obviously shared many times and many examples, you can enrich it in many, many different ways. I'll just show you here a quick example. And Brice was talking about it. It's you enrich the data from the LinkedIn profile with the company name, the job, etc. In my case, was an ICP analysis using AI, and you just tell AI, okay, this is the kind of target that I want to attract. Look at the information that you have in the other fields and tell me if it's relevant or not, and then filter that way. As you shared also, you can do scoring and other stuff. And the next thing I like to use also is, once I have a post made by someone talking about, for example, I'm looking for a social listening tool, is to use AI to summarize what the person said and just have a sentence that I'm going to use as an icebreaker in my outreach, saying, hey, I saw you posted on LinkedIn about, and then AI summarizes the post into just a few words. So that way my sequence would be something like, and I'm going to show you right after, is, hey, Brice, I saw you posting on LinkedIn about trying to find a social listening tool, and then have the rest of my email to make it relevant and have the icebreaker being relevant with the rest of the email, as you said, or the rest of the DM, and not just some two things that are not correlated. And obviously then, as you guys know, you can do waterfall enrichment, find emails and find tons of information and enrich with all the data, the tech stack also you can use, depending on what you're tracking. And then the next thing, again, using the native integrations that we have, it's to connect the list of people that I've enriched in Clay to my Lagros machine sequence, and then it sends them automatically into Lagros machine, into an audience that I have here. And then I built a sequence here with, as Brice was saying, using a LinkedIn as a first touch point. And then here, as you say, hey, first name, customer attribute is the icebreaker that I generated with AI. And then the rest of my message, asking them if they want to see a video that I made of a workflow using Buska, Clay, and Lagros machine.
May I?
Sure.
I also have the same scenario. I think I shared it with you, Toni, not with you, Patrick. But in my scenario, what I added is a first step to like the post. In fact, well, you just pushed into that audience people who share the posts that you like. So, well, like it. and so my first step is like a post. And right after that, I had a note saying, I just saw your post. It's amazing. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for, in my case, talking about Lagros machine. In your case, it could be thanks for sharing this info, I don't know, whatever you want. And the acceptance rate and the reply rate is huge. It's because they just saw me liking the post and sending a connection request. It's just exactly the same as what I would do naturally and manually.
Yeah, I love the liking method. I pretty much tell any of my clients, like, if you're not in a massive rush to talk to these people or send them a message, just like the message like a day before, or pretty much do any sort of engagement that isn't just sending them an immediate DM, because I think it kind of like warms them up to your existence.
I found a stat. I analyzed that stat internally and looked at does liking a post before sending a connection request improve or not the acceptance. It moves from an average. Okay, that's an average. Some people never get accepted. Some people get a huge acceptance. 26% on average. But when you like a post, you get 36. That's 10 points more. Wow. That's huge. And that's just one brick, one very simple like brick. And
that's very good to know. I need to go tell all my clients that are using outreach right now.
Yeah, we should.
Because I always pitch the liking idea to them, and they're like, oh, well, like, we just want to immediately reach out to them, we don't want there to be any sort of different. And I'll be like, well, now look at this stat that the person who made the platform we're using just gave us.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty great.
That's amazing.
In fact, in Buska, what I use, can you go back to Buska just for a sec? Okay. I have 3 different campaigns on my side. This one, the one that I mentioned, the one that I track people talking about my brand, that's easy. That I just invite them to join the influencer program, basically. Another one that is exactly the same as social listening. To be honest, I don't use AI for this. I just send the plain same message for everybody, saying just like your post, amazing. I think we need to talk, something like this. And honestly, it works also really well because it's short. And I think LinkedIn, you asked earlier, which channel should I choose first? But you should always acknowledge that each channel has its own codes. And LinkedIn, conversation on LinkedIn are just chats. It's not an email. Never send an email. And so very small 2-sentence or 2 lines message works really well. Okay, that's it.
No,
yeah, I figured if we've got about 5-6 minutes left, we could leave to see if anybody has any questions. Obviously, if there aren't any questions that people drop in the chat, which if you have any, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'd love them. I can definitely hit with a couple because I feel like I have infinite anytime we approach this topic.
If you want to test Buska, Clay, or LGM, let us know in the chat and we'll share a few links.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
You see, I actually didn't know they were working on this, but Clay just dropped their whole like Spotify Wrapped feature.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, you can see how many like cells in the tool that you've run and like how many tables you've created, and ours were pretty nuts. Obviously, just given that we do it all day. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. It's like a cool like marketing touch.
Yeah. Hello, look at mine. One question, Fad, maybe.
Yeah, I got somebody typing. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, I think this webinar was like particularly exciting to me because I think it was just like the most like natural sequence of tools possible. Like I don't know, like sometimes obviously we've done like a lot of Clay LGM webinars and that's always great, but we show like the lead sourcing for cold outreach with Clay, but it doesn't have as much intent data or social listening as a tool. And I think given the problems we mentioned before with people not being able to have effective, like completely cold outreach campaigns, this is really necessary. Actually, in the early days of Clay, before they had any revenue, and before we knew about Buska, obviously, I would manually do this with Reddit. So like, I would go through and look up like people asking best lead gen softwares or best automation softwares, and I would Varun, the co-founder of Clay, would have me manually comment on every one of the posts, being like, "Oh, like you should use Clay, like it's incredible." And now there's just that does it automatically, and I'm like, I wish I knew about this. It would have saved me hours of just tedious work. All right. Well, if there's no questions, I guess we could go ahead and call it. I thought this was a super productive. I'm pumped to go back and watch this, and I definitely plan on putting some clips from it as well.
There's one question from Ali. Biggest problem that outbound cold email campaigns are facing right now. Biggest problem that outbound cold email are facing right now.
I think there's a few. My take is the first one is deliverability for most people. Like, with email in particular, like people aren't even getting into inbox anymore. Like, because I think there are a lot of services out there that claim to make inboxes at scale for you and then don't actually work that well. And then the ones that do work that well, people don't know how to use them. So they'll burn them within like, seconds. And then the more relevant answer past deliverability is that they're not using any sort of like warm data or intent data. They're just like getting lists that they found at Apollo and hoping that these people, will respond to them. And I think there's a significantly lower chance. I don't think I know there's a significantly lower chance that people respond as a result. Interested to hear your guys' thoughts though.
Deliverability is probably if we speak about email, deliverability is definitely the problem that's been starting it's just a start to my understanding. Google and Outlook has been the first to restrict the deliverability.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will continue on major email providers in the coming weeks or months. And the biggest problem, maybe that's not the biggest problem, but I'd say if you listen to people on LinkedIn, they often say, okay, you want 100 meetings, send 1 million emails. I'd say that's another problem. That's a problem because the more you do this, the less you'll get replies, and the less we get replies. Because you spam the entire planet, and so because you do this, everybody fail, everybody lose. So
that's a great point. Stop blasting people. Stop blasting our prospects with emails. It's ruining campaigns.
It's ruining it for everyone. And about deliverability. I would say it's obviously the biggest one, as you said, Brice. It's getting worse and more difficult. And to me, that brings the thing of, as you said, having multi-channel and multiple touch points, which is to get in someone's inbox, you're going to need to build trust beforehand, before getting into the inbox. And that's where LinkedIn come in. That's where also using other channels, as you said, Reddit, Twitter, etc. Building a report and showing who you are so that people can trust you when they receive an email from you and engage with you makes a lot of sense. And the other problem that I see a lot, and you're talking about people on LinkedIn saying blast away, is that also because we're in the space, we're right aware of what kind of intents work and what kind of doesn't. But I see a lot of people coming from SMBs that are not in the tech world, that are just getting into intent and stuff like that. And for them, an intent is like raising funds, which is, so obviously in their case, the chance of getting results and replies is so low because everyone now knows that, you raised funds 6 months ago. That's not working anymore. So that, to me, the problem is that, a lot of people are starting to use intents the bad way because they're doing generic stuff. And again, building trust is important. And that's where warm outreach, using intent signals from social media, people that visited your website, people that attend events that are relevant for you. I use, for example, Lagros Machine a lot because I have a newsletter on AI to reach out to people that like posts about AI or join events about AI. Being relevant is the most important thing, and building trust using LinkedIn and relevant intent, I think, to me, is the biggest problem that people are having nowadays, is because they don't understand that they need to build that trust to get results nowadays and not just blast away, as you said.
Absolutely. Completely agree with that. And I think this has been a lot of fun. I think this topic is not as widely discussed as it should be, given how many companies are running sales motions at any given time. And I still have to constantly remind myself that we are kind of in a bubble with a lot of this information. Like, I always think that clay is bigger than it is. And then I go talk to somebody who's in like an SDR at a big company that never heard of it in their lives. And I'm like, oh shoot, like it's really still that early. Okay. Got it. Which is exciting.
I've seen a post recently that from a VC saying that if you want to join a company, don't join AI companies, join companies that will help AI companies get clients, get customers. So marketing and GTM companies.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. And I know that you can get paid well because we're hiring and we're having to pay well to find the right people. So I know you can get solid roles at these companies. But awesome. Yeah, well, I appreciate it, guys. I'm assuming this recording will be kind of circulating around after this as well. Right? Awesome. All right, sounds good. Well, appreciate you guys, and have a good one. Appreciate
Thanks a lot. Have a great day. See you. Bye.
Bye, guys.